So, I want to tell you the story, not of Avatar, but of the Avatar theme park, an entire theme park land at Walt Disney World. Most people's first question is, how and why is there an Avatar theme park? So I thought today, as a huge theme park buff, I could go over its whole sordid history with you and talk a little bit about what it's like, because I have been there. There's a motorcycle that's been going for that whole take, so should I just use it anyway? Would it be funny? I had the full Navi experience, and I want to share my findings. I was going to divide this video into some kind of numbered list, but then I thought instead of numbers, I would use Avatar sequels, because someday there are going to be more Avatar sequels than numbers in the English language. So, part 1, Avatar 2, The Chronicles of Animal Kingdom. For those not in the know, Disney World is actually separated into 4 different parks. In layman's terms, the one with the castle, the one with the Star Wars stuff, and the one with the drinking around the world. The 4th park is Animal Kingdom, and that one is the zoo. When it opened, they had a whole ad campaign about how it's not just a zoo, it's more than a zoo.
Not a zoo.
Disney's Animal Kingdom, it's many, many things, but remember it's not a zoo!
But it's basically just a zoo. It's a zoo with highly themed, really cool areas, but it's a zoo. Animal Kingdom is weird because it's like 90% live animals in representations of Asia and Africa, and 10% Dino Land USA. Dino Land USA is a dinosaur roadside carnival themed land. It's not a very thematically cohesive park. But the reason Animal Kingdom feels kind of unbalanced is this was not the original vision of the park. Disneyland says right on its plaque that it's meant to represent worlds of yesterday, tomorrow, and fantasy, and Animal Kingdom was going to be kind of similar. They were going to represent yesterday, today, and fantasy. For animals of yesterday, you would have Dino Land showing extinct species. For animals of today, you would have the massive zoo portion of the park showing real living animals. And for animals of fantasy, you would have Beastly Kingdom, a mythology-themed land with a roller coaster through a dragon-infested castle, a walk through unicorn labyrinth, and a restaurant next to a lagoon with a big animatronic sea serpent in it. And then they ran out of money. They couldn't afford to build everything for opening day. They could either build Dino Land USA or Beastly Kingdom. They could build either the concrete lot with the chintzy roadside carnival or the epic world of medieval fantasy beasts. Now, I love Dino Land USA, but in my opinion, the choice between the two seems somewhat clear. But the CEO was like, hey, we're about to release that movie, Dinosaur. You guys remember Dinosaur? The smash box office success? That's definitely a property that merits its own theme park tie-in. So we got Dino Land instead of Beastly Kingdom. No big deal. They'll just build Beastly Kingdom later. And then they ran out of money again. So Beastly Kingdom was permanently canceled, and the only hint that it ever would have existed is like you could see the image of a dragon on some benches around the park. And the land that was earmarked for it was just sitting there, a vacant lot. Moving on, Avatar 3. Why Avatar? I hope that's the real title of Avatar 3. So Animal Kingdom opened in 1998 as a park that was essentially only 60% finished, and this did not escape people's notice. And the public gave this theme park a cruel name, a name that means half-formed, Quasimodo. No, they called it a half-day park. This basically means that compared to the other parks, there wasn't that much to do, and you didn't have to allot that much time of your vacation to experiencing it. As a company, you don't want a half-day park. A half-day park means nobody staying for dinner, it means worse evening crowds than the other parks, and it means people are booking shorter trips. And there's no such thing as a cheap theme park to build or to operate. So if it's open, you want to be maximizing your profits. And then in 2010, another terrible thing happens.
Coming this spring, you can truly be part of Harry Potter's world.
Universal Studios, right across town, opens the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. Disney had made an aggressive play for the theme park rights to Harry Potter, but ultimately J.K. Rowling went with Universal Studios because they were more willing to give her creative control. Legend has it that the point of contention with Disney was that J.K. Rowling said that she needed to have a full-size locomotive take guests into the park and then reverse down a 100-yard stretch of track to go pick up more guests. And Disney was like, that sounds asinine and pretty bad for crowd control. And Universal Studios was like, lady, we will build you whatever trains you want. So in 2010, Wizarding World opens and it's beautiful. It's really, really good. They completely knock it out of the park. It's the first time Universal has put anything in any of their theme parks that's even remotely comparable to Disney. And not only is it comparable, it's kind of better than anything Disney has done recently. And beyond that, the biggest success of Wizarding World is the merchandise. People are paying premium prices for wizard robes and $30 plastic wands and butterbeer, and by people, I mean myself. And Universal is just like making more money than they ever have before. They're making $4 billion a day. For the first time, they're giving Disney a run for their money. And also for the first time, Universal Studios is a competitive location to Disney World. Universal Studios Florida used to be that thing where like you're already in town for Disney World and you think, oh, maybe I'll go there for a day too. Now Universal was a destination. Like, people were going to Florida just to go there, and they weren't even going to Disney World while they were in town. So this brings us to 2011. Disney is like, we need to get these crowds back in our parks. And maybe they're a little bit like, we should have just built that darn train. But no, Disney needs something new. And Disney's like, what's a property with a huge cultural impact, comparable to Harry Potter, set in an immersive alternate universe? What's a property loved not just by children, but by adults and millennials, where they want to live in its world and they'll buy expensive costumes and prop replicas and themed beverages? And then somebody was like, I know, Avatar. Yeah, Disney wouldn't buy Star Wars until a year later, so their new land was Avatar. As soon as they announced it, the general public response was, what? And why? And no. Avatar is a very weird franchise. I want to compare it to something, but I can't think of anything similar. It was mainly groundbreaking for its special effects, and the characters and story were generally pretty unmemorable. Most people liked it okay, and a few people liked it a lot, but after it hit home video, people just kind of stopped talking about it. Presumably because on a small screen in 2D, it just wasn't as much fun to rewatch. Progress on the sequels stagnated, and people forgot about them or assumed they'd been canceled. Fan forums dwindled to a dozen or so active members, and those members are still active today. They are the ride or die Avatar fans. You had this weird phenomenon where the movie that had been the biggest movie in the world 2 years prior now held less cultural relevance than like Sonic the Hedgehog. Without any sequels confirmed, the Avatar theme park could only get less relevant in the 6 years it would take to open. People were confused, they were angry, they wanted something else. They wanted Disney to prioritize repairs on existing attractions. They wanted their own original idea to be built. They wanted Beastly Kingdom back on the table. Disney acquired Star Wars long before they had even broken ground on the Avatar Land project, and fans waited for years expecting the project to just be quietly canceled. But it seemed like it was almost a point of pride in management. Like, you thought we weren't gonna do it. There had been so many naysayers for the Avatar project since the beginning, and backing down now would only prove them right. It's bizarre to see a theme park project whose motivating drive seems to be spite, but that's really what the vibe was at the time. But anyway, they pushed onward, and Pandora, the World of Avatar, opened in 2017. Avatar 4, The Valley of Moara. So, here is the in-canon story of Avatar Land. The land is officially called Pandora, the World of Avatar, but within its own lore, the location is called the Valley of Moara. In case you've somehow forgotten, the plot of the Avatar movie is that an evil company called RDA has moved into Pandora to mine the natural resources and displace the local peaceful aliens called the Navi. The humans, who in this dystopian future have already overdeveloped and ruined the earth, are now unfairly encroaching on the Navi's beautiful paradise. So the theme park is set in the future after the events of the movie. RDA is long gone, they've already been defeated, and now a new company, Alpha Centauri Expeditions, has moved in to foster a peaceful relationship with the Navi. ACE has developed human settlements and is now bringing out tourists to share in Pandoran culture. This is actually a really cool idea because if you look around the land, you can see that various props and buildings are repurposed military materials, like signs that have been painted over to have something friendlier on them, or reclaimed industrial-looking materials that have been fashioned into more native-looking signposts or lean-tos. And all of the more industrial-looking buildings or materials are now being reclaimed by nature. So you might see an old metal door from the military base, but it's being swallowed up by vines and moss. It's never fully explained how the Navi came to reverse their decision on that whole welcoming humans to their planet thing, especially after that debacle where we hauled in a bunch of space tractors and demolished the tree, which is their god. I realize that in this part of the timeline, we're meant to understand that the humans are super nice to the Navi and interested in learning about their culture.
What happened with the RDA will never happen again.
And I guess it's mutually beneficial. Like, I don't know. I feel like usually the benefit of tourists coming to where you live is like an influx of cash. But the Navi live in like big tribes where they share everything, and their magical forest home provides all that they need. Even if ACE is giving them a cut of those sweet Earth tourism dollars, what are they spending it on? Did we bring the Navi around to our culture? Are they buying iPhones and Beats by Dre? The theme park kind of glosses over how this cultural exchange could work both ways, but that's not important. What's important is the Navi are totally cool with this. Trust us.
Now we appreciate and hear our musical celebration, and they love it that we're keeping the voice of the land alive.
In the Pandoran restaurant, they even have photos all over the wall commemorating the opening of the canteen, and there are like diary entries about how well ACE and the Navi are getting along, and photos of them constructing the building together and like high-fiving each other. And my personal favorite, a photograph of a human guy and a bunch of Navi holding big oversized shovels at the groundbreaking ceremony. You know, groundbreakings. A thing the Navi would love. I don't know, this story just has some pretty grim implications. Like, I thought in the movie the Navi were a fairly clear proxy for Native Americans. I mean, it was basically just Dances with Wolves. Like, everybody compared it to Dances with Wolves, and the only ones who didn't compared it to Pocahontas, presumably because they were too young to have seen Dances with Wolves. But either way, Native Americans. So with that in mind, it feels a little uncomfortable that you're buying like clip-in beaded hair extensions and light-up medicine man staffs and bongo drums and t-shirts of their buff naked bodies.
Build your own Navi bracelet or necklace. This feels wrong.
But even ignoring that, I got a sense of kind of a ghoulish wrongness in Pandora, and it took me a minute to put my finger on it. There aren't any Navi anywhere. You see them in photos with humans in the canteen. A couple of them appear on screens in the rides. There's just one animatronic, but they're not walking around. There's no evidence that they're coexisting with the humans in this society. Obviously that makes sense because they're so dead set on being faithful to the source material that they don't want a Navi that's not 10 feet tall, so they can't just put somebody in a suit and do a meet and greet like they do with the princesses. But I don't know, couldn't they have considered that before committing to the theme park concept? Because meeting characters is a thing at all of the Disney parks. In Cars Land, you even meet the cars, and they drive around and stuff. Can't they just have somebody on stilts so they're like 7 feet tall? I mean, it's not 10, but it'll trick your eye, especially if you're a child. Or they could do like an indoor meet and greet where there is a stationary puppet or animatronic Navi. Maybe like the legs are a statue and it just moves from the waist up. And since it's so high up, It doesn't have to look that good. It just has to look good in photos. The primary message of the land, in keeping with the themes of Animal Kingdom, is conservation, and in this case, humans coexisting with the creatures and the Navi.
The dominance of landscape over architecture, and the dominance of natural forces over the built human world. Intrinsic value of nature, transformation through adventure, personal call to action. These are the values of Animal Kingdom. If you say them again, those are the themes of the film Avatar. So Avatar and Animal Kingdom will nest into each other, I think, very, very neatly.
But the more you keep repeating that, the more you're really feeling the Navi's absence. There used to be Navi here. You can see them in photos. You can see a giant Navi-sized drum set that they used to use in their drum circles. So if they used to be here, where did they go? It's like the humans have colonized and taken over. Suddenly, Alpha Centauri Expeditions starts to feel a little sinister. Man, they must be making a lot of money selling these premium vacation packages to Pandora. Boy, they sure do like to frame the evidence of their good relationship with the Navi and hang it right on the restaurant wall for the patrons to see. They're all so smiley and welcoming. I'm sure it's fine. Tomorrow I'm going backpacking to the home tree. It's good. It's fine. Avatar 5, Immersion. Avatar was pitched as a fully immersive experience that really puts you on Pandora. And let me be clear, Pandora is a really, really cool theme park land. Even though the hype around this land's opening was so lukewarm, the development team really threw themselves into it. Like, they went all out. There are beautiful floating mountains with amazing forced perspective, and they don't look like they should be possible. There are real and fake waterfalls everywhere. There are weird fake alien plants seamlessly incorporated in with real plants. At night, half the stuff is bioluminescent, and even the ground has like these blotches that light up when you walk across it. It's such a sensory overload of beautiful alien things that you really feel like you're on another planet. And this was all intentional. I think they were trying to take a page out of their nemesis Harry Potter Land's book by trying to make everything as convincing and in-universe as possible. This also means that everybody working in the land had to do an extra training day where they would learn the history of Avatar and Pandoran culture, and even some of the language.
Do you speak any Navi?
A little bit. Kalte is hello.
Kalte?
Kiavame is see you soon.
Ooh.
Itarayu is thank you.
All of the lands at Disney are supposed to look and feel immersive, but the people working in them aren't in character. Like, if you go up to a cashier in Frontierland to buy a t-shirt, they're not going to ask you how many days ago you rode in on the wagon train. I mean, unfortunately. But in Avatar Land, the employees are expected to be in character. Like, while they're ringing you up, they are tersely asking you how you're enjoying the Navi homeland. Like, they're afraid you're an undercover boss about to terminate them if they slip up. And my personal favorite, if you make any reference to the film Avatar, they correct you and refer to it as the documentary.
Have you seen our documentary?
About Jake and Neytiri.
About Jake and Neytiri?
Yes.
So, this is way after that documentary.
Which I think is delightful. It's kind of a shame because the designers did go so deep into the lore, but most of the general public won't remember Avatar enough to understand or appreciate most of it. And unless you happen to ask the right cast member who really remembers their Pandora training day, you're not likely to pick up on a lot of it by word of mouth. Unless you watch all the making of promo videos and Imagineer interviews you can find on YouTube before your visit, like I did. Some things around Pandora have signs, which I think is a very positive idea. Like, if you wander in the right direction, you can find this pond with these big ocean nautilus looking creatures bobbing at the surface, and there's a warning sign next to it saying not to get too close to the water, because if you do, they will shoot out powerful jets of venom which they use to knock their prey out of the air.
Ooh!
And if you look around the edges of the pond, and even under the water lying on the bottom of the pond, you can see these big 2-foot-long plastic insects that have been killed by these nautilus things when it knocked them out of the air. I just thought that was a really cute detail and good storytelling. I live for that kind of thing in theme parks, and I think having the warning sign was such a well-integrated way of explaining to people what the heck was going on. By contrast, there are some things that do not have signs that definitely should have signs. In commitment to the theming of the land, it was decided that the rides should not have big fancy signs out front, and instead they put up these big woven symbols that are meant to symbolically convey what the ride is. And they intentionally built Pandora to be kind of circuitous and have a bunch of little paths that go off in different directions with no clear signs of what is where. And that was supposed to give you the feeling of authentically exploring an alien planet, which is really cool, but it does make it really easy to get turned around. It also means that when it's really late at night and it's dark out and it's been raining, so everything's all slick and wet, and you're wearing a poncho that's obscuring your vision, and you've just run all the way across Animal Kingdom because you saw in the app that Navi River Journey, the one ride you haven't done yet, is down to a 5-minute wait, but the park closes in 10 minutes, so you have to get there before they cut the line off, and you can't remember which corner of Avatar Land the ride is on.
Pardon me, is River Journey straight, or is it the one that's to the right?
The River Journey?
Yeah.
No, straight.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
It's just not exactly ideal that they don't have a clearly labeled sign.
It's by that big woven looking thing.
Right, the big woven thing. I like how none of them have signs.
It's even more ridiculous because although the rides don't have signs saying what their names are, they still have the Disney Park standard signs that are little LED indicators of the wait time, which of course they have that. It would be chaos if people had to ask every time they wanted to know how long the wait is. But if they're going to have that and break the theme with the big metal pole and the LED sign with a number on it, why can't they just have some kind of discrete sign that's easy to read that says what ride you're looking at? Finally, my favorite part of Pandora's commitment to immersion. When you buy anything at a Disney park, you get a plastic Disney Parks shopping bag. They change the design every few years, but it's uniform across all parks. But Pandora wants to be immersive. So if you buy anything in Pandora, you get this plastic bag. It says Pandora, just like in Avatar. Avatar 6. Ikni-Maya. Let's get into the rides. Flight of Passage is the big ride in this land. The e-ticket, as they're called. This ride can get up to like a 5-hour wait on any given day. And if you go in the morning and it's like a short line, it's still like an hour line. Fortunately on this trip we had fast passes, because no. The story of this ride is that you are going to take part in the Ikni-Maya, the Navi coming of age ceremony in which you ride on the back of an Ikran, or Banshee, or dragon. It's just a dragon. In the story of this ride, you are not a Navi. You are a human tourist visiting with Alpha Centauri expeditions, and they are going to match your brain to an existing avatar that they have in the lab, and then you are going to straddle a link bike, and they are going to connect your brain to this avatar body. And the avatar is already on the Ikran, and once you get there, a Navi guide is going to guide you around Pandora so that you can prove your mettle as a Navi warrior. You might have noticed that this idea is a little high concept, especially to little kids visiting a theme park who maybe were born after 2009 and have never seen Avatar, or for adults who saw Avatar only once in 2009 and only kind of remember it. They seem to realize this because when you're going onto the ride, you have not one but 2 pre-show rooms. And in the first one, you watch a video where a man greets you and explains the story of the ride.
Soon, you're gonna have a chance to undertake an amazing Navi rite of passage. The way you're gonna do this is by being matched to something called an avatar.
You guys ready to get your avatars?
First, we have to scan you for a Pandoran microparasite. This enormous company called the RDA created a lot of damage to the area through their bad mining practices. Thanks to a special link chair, your mind will be able to control that avatar. And we're here in the Valley of Moara studying banshees. They're created by blending human DNA and Navi DNA. The Navi have been riding on the backs of banshees since their earliest history. We need to find the compatible match of your genetic material with the genetic material of one of the avatar bodies that we already have. We need to find each of you an avatar. You're going to be matched to these things called avatars.
Then you go into the second pre-show room and you watch a movie where a woman explains the story of the ride to you. She just tells you all of it a second time.
Before we send you into the link chamber, let's watch this piece by Dr. Ogden, who runs the program.
The way you'll be able to fly is by linking to an avatar.
We establish a link using powerful psionic amplification equipment. A human driver is connected to an avatar.
Once the link takes place, you'll be connected to your avatar.
This ride is a motion simulator ride, which I generally hate and find boring, but I actually really like this ride, and I think it's because the ride system is so cleverly executed. I don't want to go too deep into it in case you want to ride it and believe that magic is real, but if you've ever been on a ride in Epcot called Soarin' Around the World, you can see pretty clearly in that ride what the ride system is. It's not really disguised. This is basically the same ride system. It's just dressed up a lot better, which makes the execution a lot better. Yeah, I went into this ride prepared to be a bitter hater because I hate motion simulators, but I actually really liked it. I even waited 90 minutes to re-ride this thing. And I don't do lines. And granted, if it had been a 5-hour line, I would not have done it. I would have preferred to just lie face down on the pavement and let my dreams carry me to Pandora. But a 90-minute line is a pretty big concession from me, and I did it happily. I like the smells that they pick to represent Pandora. I like that you can feel the banshee breathe. I like the quiet moment where you stop in the crystal caverns, and I like that they spray mist basically directly into your eyeballs for the entire experience. I like the part where your Navi guide shouts, "Siva Ko!" which they've explained to you in the pre-show means rise to the challenge. However, I do have to say, when you think about it, this story is pretty funny. I mean, think about it. We know from the movie that avatar bodies are just empty shells when a human brain isn't actively linked to them. But this one is already riding a banshee when you link in.
Linking to an avatar that's already on the back of an Ikron.
So I guess the people that work for this company went out and bungee corded a bunch of floppy avatar bodies onto these banshee. You think you're having this transcendent spiritual experience with this banshee, and then you find out it's just doing a memorized route day in and day out like a pony at a summer camp. Then your session ends and the avatar body on its back goes all limp and floppy again. And then it takes its 15-minute snack break while it waits for the next tourist to plug in. Also, remember that thing I was saying about the implications of this land on a meta level with the crass commercialization of the sacred Navi ways? I like that the Ikni Maya is explained to be this sacred rite of passage within Navi culture. Young Navi warriors probably train their entire lives to be able to take part in this dangerous and spiritually significant ritual. And now you're just some guy from Florida that paid to come out and do this in an afternoon for fun. It's a ziplining excursion on a cruise to the Bahamas. Ooh, fun theme park fact. This Sigourney Weaver-alike has such a soothing voice because she actually provided the voice for one of the computer system voices that you hear when you're waiting in line for Star Tours. And her character name, Dr. Jackie Ogden, is in honor of a real person, Dr. Jacqueline Ogden, who was a vice president of Animal Kingdom for a time. She's a psychologist, and her focus was on developing education and conservation programs for the park. And I just think it's really cool that they did a tribute to her. And that's it. It's just a fun fact. Just some deep theme park trivia that probably barely any of you will care about. Avatar 7, Navi River Journey. Bad. Okay, sorry, no. Let me explain. Flight of Passage is the big ride in Pandora, and Navi River Journey is the less good ride. It's the humbler ride. It's not trying to be as good. It's smaller, less exciting, less ambitious, but it is still new, and it's kind of the consolation prize for people that don't want to wait 5 hours for Flight of Passage. So it can still get a 40 to 90 minute wait. We rode it, as I mentioned, right before closing time, so we did not have to wait. We basically walked right on, which is really, really good news because I would rather swim down the tumbleweed-infested waters of the Caspavan River myself than wait 90 minutes for this experience.
You're trying to determine what it smells like in here because it's kind of that bromine smell like Pirates of the Caribbean, but it smells like Pirates of the Caribbean and natural gas. Like someone left the stove on and it's gonna just explode. We're gonna blow up.
Despite the pretty negative feedback when this opened, I was actually the most excited for this ride. It's a dark ride, which basically means an indoor ride with show scenes conveying some kind of story, traditionally with black light. I love me some dark rides. They are my favorite kind of ride.
Oh. Okay. Yes. going to be so cool.
And I heard this one was slow and lame and boring and underwhelming and bad. But I didn't believe it. I assumed all the naysayers were just heathens who were mad it wasn't a roller coaster or something. Like, oh, I get it. It's a boat ride and you don't go over a splash. I'm so sorry. Can't anybody just appreciate quiet beauty anymore? And it turns out it's just not a very good ride. It's very boring and very short. And I don't mind boring. I ride the Carousel of Progress every time I'm in Florida, sometimes twice in one day. The story of Navi River Journey is you sit in a woven boat and you slowly drift down a river. Occasionally you see a screen against a back wall with Navi running past or animals running past.
It kind of loops a little too quick for it to seem convincing. Oh. The jellies! The jellies!
You hear distant singing, and then you reach the Navi shaman of songs, who is singing. Then you round a corner, and you realize you're back at the loading station and the ride is over.
I was sure.
What I'm trying to say is this ride has no story, which that's weird for a dark ride, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, you can have some rides that are more about conveying ambiance than a linear narrative. The thing is, this ride is just a lot of jungle scenery with nothing in it. You boat past lush plant life, some of which is glowing. Occasionally you'll see one of those whirly top things from the movie turning around, or one of those flying jellyfish things represented by taking a rubber jellyfish and putting it on a wire and jiggling it occasionally. There are no animatronics except for the shaman of songs at the end, and she is possibly the best animatronic they have ever made. She's huge and she moves so much and she looks like she's alive. Her movement is so fluid, but she's also the only one. Supposedly this ride was originally supposed to be more like Pirates of the Caribbean with like little scenes and tens of Navi animatronics and maybe animatronic creatures too. But thanks to time constraints and, of course, budget cuts, they scaled that back to a whopping 1 animatronic. If you've ever ridden Pirates of the Caribbean, you might remember that when the ride begins, you're going through these drippy, empty pirate caves, and occasionally you'll see a tableau of some skeletons on a beach or something. Then you round a corner and you're in this amazing, huge ship battle, and then you go into the city and there are so many pirates and they're moving around. Navi River Journey is like if you rode Pirates of the Caribbean, but it moved half the speed and there were no drops and it was only cave scenes and there were half as many skeletons. And the crab on the beach that waves its claws is just a rubber crab that's tied to a string and it jiggles sometimes. And then you get to the end and there is one incredibly impressive pirate animatronic. And he's not from any of the movies and he's speaking a made-up language so you have no idea what he's saying, and then the ride ends. I really want to like Navi River Journey. The bioluminescents are beautiful, but they're not really more beautiful than the ones that are outside that you don't have to wait in a line to see. And the jungle just straight up doesn't have that convincing forced perspective that the Disney rides have to suggest depth. It only ever feels like you're in a narrow boat going down a narrow hallway with like maybe 3 feet of plants on either side of you. The projections and screens look nice, like it's good sharp image quality, and they do that thing where it's like layered screens to suggest depth, but there's just no technology yet that's adequate enough to trick the human eye into thinking that a thing on a screen is a tangible thing in front of them.
Or is it projected? Oh, yeah.
Maybe someday, but not yet. Right now it just feels like a sad shortcut. There are some cool effects, like they have this canopy of leaves on the ceiling, and at one part the leaves are screens, so they show the underside of a frog jumping around on top of the leaf, and when the projection of the frog silhouette moves, the leaf twitches up and down like it really has the frog on top of it. I mean, that's really cool, but it's a lot less cool when I tell you that at that moment, that's like the only thing happening on the ride. I'm also really confused with why, if it's a budget issue, they didn't use the jungle setting to their advantage. Like, they can use the fact that there are leaves everywhere and just build like part of an animal that kind of moves and put it half hidden behind some leaves. That would add a lot of mystique and interest. Where did my panther cat thing go? Where did it go? They could construct like just the furry head of this Thanator and have it prowling behind the leaves. And maybe it's so simple that the head just kind of moves side to side to show that it's watching you, like maybe the ears twitch or something. The only thing I really appreciate about this ride is the very repetitive, very catchy song. I assume it's called Ma-e-wa because that's most of the lyrics.
Ma-e-wa, 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 ma-e-wa.
The lyrics are all in Navi, but fortunately, somebody on those aforementioned still active fan forums has translated it for us. Bound together, O great mother, wood sprite, we live well. O Ewa, respect Navi, look at wood sprite. Anyway, I guess the silver lining is that they built this ride, so like, it's a good groundwork, and maybe someday when they have the money, they will go in and add a bunch more figures and it will become an amazing ride. Maybe they will someday, but like, that's also what we said about Beastly Kingdom, so.
Oh, big jellies. Big jellies. Woohoo.
Avatar 8. Miscellaneous atmospheric elements. I didn't have a category for this, but I had to talk about the Navi drum ceremony. This is an atmospheric show which takes place every hour in one of Pandora's outdoor courtyards. They have an interactive drum circle with a seating area around it as a permanent fixture of this area, so at all times of day, toddlers can run up and bang on these synth drums. At showtime, every hour, this trio of happy, smiling, mic'd people come out, cheering and chanting and start banging on these drums.
Either those are some really excited guests who came in costume, or the show is happening. Oh my god, oh my god.
They're humans, but they're dressed like it's Burning Man to convey that this is some kind of tribal experience. They chant, Sa-oo, which means welcome.
The Navi taught us to play their music.
Then they drum a bunch. They talk about how important drumming is to the Navi. And then they drum some more.
Drumming and ribbon dancing at the same time.
Then at like the midpoint of the show, they tell us that the purpose of our drumming and cheering is to make enough noise to get the banshee's attention.
I hear a banshee! Yeah!
The floating mountains over our head have a speaker installed in them, so you hear banshee screeches coming from up there, and then the hosts are like, we did it! And then the show ends. The original version of the Navi drum ceremony show was about 15 minutes long, very poorly received, and criticized for being boring and confusing. It almost immediately was pulled for a hiatus, and when it came back, it was about 5 minutes shorter and reportedly dumbed down. I watched the original show on YouTube, and it was mainly long stretches of drumming, punctuated by speaking in Navi and occasionally asking the audience if they feel the connection. So the new version of the show is both objectively an improvement and practically the same. The performers are great. They're giving it their all, but I honestly don't know what Disney was thinking having this show happen every hour. It's not very engaging, and I would designate it as being in real danger of being cut entirely in the next couple of years. And then they'll just have these drums that kids can bang on, and people will kind of wonder why they're there. And that's why I was so determined to see it this trip. And I was very afraid because the day I was supposed to watch it, it started raining heavily, and this show cannot happen in the rain. So I was in the position of literally just sitting on a cold, wet bench, huddled in my poncho, waiting for the rain to stop and hoping for any sign that they were going to resume their drum ceremony scheduling.
Kirsten's gonna ask the man if the drum show is happening. No? Is that a head shake? Oh no. He looks, it looks like he's delivering bad news. Yes? Nod your head enthusiastically, sir. Yeah, of course we're doing the drum show. Yeah, definitely. Oh, it's happening. He said
that it's up to performers.
Okay.
But as of right now, it's looking like they might have a show in 5 minutes.
Yeah! Since it was wet and miserable out, when the performers initially came out, there wasn't like a crowd gathered, and they could see me like sitting there in the front row, clearly waiting for this show and like recording it and intently watching. So the performers kept kind of like making eye contact with me, but that was a great enhancement to the experience. I almost felt like it was just for me. And when it got to the interactive portion, they brought me a gourd to shake. Another miscellaneous offering is Navi face paint, which I thought was funny, and prior to my trip, I thought I was totally gonna do it.
All right, time for the big reveal.
Ready?
Yep. Do you like it?
When you're there in the Florida heat and humidity, it starts to sound like torture, and you're also hyper aware that it's going to very quickly melt off your face. In hindsight, that probably would have made it a lot funnier, and I should have just gone for it. In the time I was there, I didn't see a single person with Navi face paint. Finally, there are several Pandora exclusive refreshment options, and they are uniformly bizarre. Firstly, we have Pongu Pongu, the drinks counter, which is repurposed from a defunct, decommissioned RDA robot attack suit. Pongu is the Navi word for party, and to my delight, I found out that when Pandora debuted, they had a cast Pongu. That's real. Pongu Pongu's menu consists mostly of slushies and rum slushies. I ordered the rum slushie, and the girl behind the counter made it, and then gave it to me, and then was like, wait, you wanted the rum slushie? I have to make you a new one. And then she just remade the exact same drink and then just dumped a shot of rum on top. It wasn't incorporated, it was just floating on top of the slush. So now I just had 2 drinks. And they come with glowing pods. I don't know if they were delicious or if it was just really hot out, but I give it a 4-star rating. Or as the Navi would say, 4 Snatanhitsyip. Then we headed over to Satuli Canteen, which means Heritage Canteen. And their signature dish is the Satuli Bowl, which means Heritage Bowl. You pick a protein, you pick a base, and you pick a dressing, and then they put boba on top to make it look like alien. I got the tofu, which was basically like if you could make tater tots out of tofu, and I loved it. 5 out of 5 Snatanhitsyip. Same for the dessert, which basically was a cheesecake, but looked like some kind of mysterious blue alien dome. I wish all my desserts looked like that.
So this is the, what are they? It's a cheeseburger pod.
It's a pod.
It's made of some kind of alien cheeseburger.
Oh.
All right. Put one of those halves in your mouth.
All of it?
And tell me how it tastes.
Just the whole thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh my god, she's doing it.
Eat the whole thing at once, or it's not authentic.
It's alright.
It's okay?
Yeah.
Are you glad you got it? No?
It actually tastes like a cheeseburger. In fact, like the bao itself tastes like just like normal bread. Look at it.
It is just kind of bread.
It's just bread and cheeseburger.
Well, so it's a cheeseburger.
So I had a cheeseburger.
You've had a cheeseburger.
The Navi way.
Whoa.
The final offering is the gift shop food. I was surprised how much stuff was on offer, and I also imagine that they don't sell a lot of it.
Expedition trail mix, rock candy, Pandoran tree spores, coconut brownie bites, Rice Krispie vein pod.
My friend Kirsten got these vile gummies that looked like grubs.
Customary Navi gift of a roast.
Slug.
Ew. I'm a texture person.
It's a lot tougher than
it's just
bite
it's so much gooier than I thought it would be.
I mean, they tasted okay, but I was just kind of put off by the experience of eating grubs.
I don't like the texture of it feeling like a slug and looking like a slug.
I don't like it.
Oh, and finally, I brought this bad boy back with me. It's Avatar flavored popcorn, and I haven't tried it yet. I hope it's okay to eat this. It has been like a month since my trip. I don't see an expiration date on it. Oh, this is expired. Do it for the views, Jenny. It's mainly because it was expired that it was gross. But it also didn't taste good. I bet one of the almonds is okay to eat if I can get to one. Aha! I like how they even dyed the almond blue. Let's try this. Yeah, the almonds are good. I mean, the part I like about the almond is the almond taste. And then it just has this like gross candy coating on it. So I guess I just like almonds, and this is a failed product. All right, let's move on. Avatar 9, the merch. As I said, this land was unsubtly made in response to Wizarding World, so they went ham on the merch. And it's really weird.
All my favorite characters from Avatar. Thanator, Hexapede, Leonopteryx. Nice. Would this even evoke Pandora to you? It just looks like an ugly frame. Okay, it's just a lava lamp.
I noticed that there were a lot of people looking at things in the gift shop, but there was never a line at the registers. There's basically a predictable disconnect between the public and Avatar, where people remember it and have vague positive feelings toward it, but they're really at the theme park land because it's a cool theme park land, and also it's new and exciting, not because they love Avatar enough to want high-end collectibles from it. In fact, I would venture to guess that the souvenir sales in Pandora are just going to drop more and more the longer it's open. Right now, I would imagine that the highest value of Pandora merch is that the Avatar theme park is still really new, and people have heard of it, but a lot of people haven't had a chance to go yet. So if you're wearing merch from it, it's a good conversation piece. And it's also a good way to flex on people. When Avatar Land isn't new anymore, people are less likely to go, oh, you've been to that Avatar theme park. What was that like? And at that point, I would expect the value of the merch to drop off sharply. Contrast that against franchises like Harry Potter or Star Wars, where people just genuinely love the intellectual property and want memorabilia of it removed from the context of the theme park. But anyway, I picked up some Pandora merch while I was there, including the sick wearables I've got on right now.
I need to get some Pandora duds.
You don't want a floating island mug?
I have that. In the tradition of Disney Parks headwear, which usually takes the form of Mickey Mouse ear hats or headbands, Pandora offers the Navi headband with ears and tribal-looking headdress. And you can round out the look with your novelty Navi tail. I thought these were so funny, and I immediately had to buy and wear them. And then as I was walking around the park, it slowly dawned on me that there was not a single other soul wearing them. Like, this was a really outlandish thing I was wearing. It's Disney World. People actively wearing Mickey Mouse ears were casting quizzical looks at my Navi ears. That's how not in the cultural consciousness Avatar is. Like, I was walking around in Animal Kingdom, and people were looking at my head and thinking, why is she wearing ears? I got this Navi woven ball. I just thought it was the funniest thing in the gift shop. It's just this rubber ball with like fake weaving around it. I put this in my carry-on bag to fly home, naive to the fact that on an X-ray scanner at an airport, a dense rubber ball like this is going to show up on the screen looking exactly like a large cartoon bomb. So I got to enjoy the TSA guy going through my entire bag, laughing at me when he found this. And then when he tried to ask what it was, I simply did not have an explanation for him. I also got this Navi woven pen, which was funny to me for the same reason the ball was. Also, my favorite souvenir, and I speculate that I was maybe the first person ever to buy this souvenir. This is a Navi translator. I really got a lot of mileage out of this on the trip. Not because I was actually able to utilize it to translate anything in a useful context, but because I liked to irritate my friends by learning the vocab words and attempting to pepper them into my conversations.
What's the Navi word for sangria?
There we go.
Angalo.
Angalo, okay.
Okay, I know Navi.
The starter pack, when you get the translator, comes with 12 language cards, but you can buy booster packs where you can get 8 new words at a time for $7. When I say that price out loud, I'm kind of mortified in hindsight by how many of these cards I have.
Wei Xiao, Jenny. This is Jenny and her like plethora of Navi cards. Did you get any duplicates?
Not really. I got like 5 duplicates.
Okay, say something else for posterity.
Okay. Okay. Now that I know Navi, I bet you guys are really. Doesn't that mean? Say that out loud.
Yeah, say it. You have to say it.
Then. At just a little under $1 per word, becoming fluent in Navi is a very expensive investment. But who can argue with the utility of learning to say words like that means bladder polyp. Finally, I of course have to mention the 2 premium merchandise experiences at Pandora. The first is this very expensive plastic banshee puppet you can buy, which comes with a whole adoption ceremony.
I don't know, I can't decide how to purple.
Oh no, wild beast.
Cute.
What is the pricing on the banshees and the perches?
Is 65 plus tax.
Okay, and then the perch is separate, right?
It feels so cool.
Okay. Beep, beep, beep. Beep. He doesn't bite, does he?
Oh, he could. You just can't make him mad.
Oh no! Oh no! Oh.
Despite the $90-ish price tag, this is probably the most popular thing you can buy in Pandora. I think they're just too plasticky for my taste. Next up is the $80 Create an Avatar experience, where you can get an avatar toy that looks like you. This is, in my opinion, even less worth the price. But I thought it was funny and basically good content, so I did it. When I first went up to create an avatar, the guy at the kiosk basically had to tell me that the person who does it was on a lunch break and to come back in an hour. But because of Pandora's commitment to immersive storytelling, he couldn't just tell me that the guy was on lunch.
Can I do it right now?
Unfortunately, not right now. Because our scan techs are just about to go back to the lab to make sure everything's growing properly.
Okay.
They won't be back until around 12:50, 1 o'clock.
It's the thought that counts, but I do appreciate the implication that in the future, nobody takes lunch breaks. That would have just shattered the illusion. So when I returned, the technician was done calibrating the growing chambers and I was good to go. Now, first, I want to say what this experience is not. It's not a thing where they scan your face and make a 3D model of it and then 3D print it onto a toy. It's also not a thing where they take a picture of your face and then flat print it onto the blank head of a toy. It's funny because in 2018, they could do either of those things. And those kind of things usually do cost about $80.
So other than that, that was
Correct. Just the feathers.
and that was just like nude?
That's okay.
I see.
You are paying mainly for the experience and the performance of the cast member, which lasts about 5 minutes. You sit down in an important looking chair, he hits a bunch of buttons on a tablet, then he pretends to talk to somebody in his headset, and then he pulls down this glowing scanner apparatus and starts waving it all around your face. He explains that this apparatus is not only making a 3D scan of your face, but is also vacuuming genetic material off of your face to grow your avatar with.
Standing by for customization sequence, closing communications.
The first red flag in this process is I said as he was scanning my face, "Oh, I should remove my hat." And then he said, "No, you don't have to." So the screens in front of you display first a picture that the scanning apparatus took of your face at some point. Then it displays a 3D model of a human head that objectively looks nothing like your head.
Oh, that looks just like me.
Finally, it displays your avatar face, which looks nothing like either of the previous 2 images. My avatar face was objectively hideous, which, great.
Oh my God. This is just getting roasted, but like in the future.
Even the technicians didn't have a poker face about it. Like, you could tell they agreed that it was ugly. Then they hand you an iPad so you can choose your eyes, hair, and the pattern of stripes you want on your Navi's face. Then they send you away for 45 minutes, and basically in that time, somebody in a back room is pulling out pieces of Navi and snapping them together.
At the end, they're like, it took us 3 hours to make it. Wow, you can see how really customized it is, right? But you just like snapped on the hair that you wanted, and you're like, all right.
Then they put it in a futuristic vending machine to make it look like it's being created by science.
So go ahead and put your hand right there.
Oh man.
Yeah.
also like to point out that at 2 points in the day, during the toy making experience and during the Flight of Passage pre-show, there were narrative beats where there was supposed to be an avatar that somebody was matching to me. And in both instances, there was some kind of ominous systems error where it appeared that something had gone very wrong.
Stand by. We're looking into delays with the genetic matching system.
Oh no!
I got a bad feeling of it.
This isn't gonna go.
Okay.
Our avatars are flawed. Here's my avatar. My avatar grew wrong. It melted. It melted my avatar.
Anyway, now I've got this to, I don't know, to love. So that was my trip to Pandora, the world of Avatar. My hottest take on all this is that if Disney wanted an intellectual property that they could acquire to make a theme park out of that vaguely fit their animal theme and was popular with both kids and millennials as a franchise, and that would sell a lot of merch, Pokemon. They should have done Pokemon. And I know Universal has the theme park rights for Nintendo, but they didn't back then. Even though I maintain that Avatar is a very weird concept for a theme park, I do think they executed it as well as they possibly could have. Except for Navi River Journey. I don't just like Pandora, I love Pandora. It turned Animal Kingdom from a half-day park to, for me at least, like a 2-day park. It has such cool atmosphere. I kept wanting to be there, like, not even for the rides, but just to exist in the environment. I love the food. I love the comically specific merchandise. I love the simulator ride. I love how earnest the entire experience is. One of my favorite moments of the entire trip is I was in Satuli Canteen and I was walking back to my table with my Satuli bowls. I walked past a kid who was staring up, open-mouthed, at one of the pictures of the Navi at the groundbreaking ceremony with the humans. He looked completely in awe of what he was seeing, and then he turned to his dad and said, "Dad, there's a movie?" And that kind of illustrates the weird duality of the Pandora experience. Oh, I almost forgot to talk about my favorite thing at Pandora. On the way into Avatar Land, you see this gigantic alien pod. If you know the deep Pandora lore like I do, you know that this pod is what enables humans to breathe in the Valley of Moara. In the documentary, they established that the atmosphere on Pandora is toxic to humans, but this large alien pod intermittently spits out steam, which is purified the air and making it safe for the humans to breathe. The pod is the first thing you see, and it is such an odd fixture. It's big, noisy, ominous looking, and objectively very ugly. Throughout Avatar Land, you see the recurring motif of this pod. There are what appear to be smaller seedlings of it growing in the planters. In the gift shop, you can buy your own Rice Krispie pod. When you order a rum slushie at Pongu Pongu, they drop a glowing pod into your drink. I love the pod. While I was visiting, I got to rub the side of the pod. It grumbled its approval and pulsed with light.
She's gonna rub the pod. Oh! Rub harder! It's working! Some water dripped directly into my ear.
It compelled me to gather my own small pod specimen and take it back with me to my homeland. I am to care for it until it is strong and then plant it in the earth. I was very torn on making this video because theme parks are like my favorite thing to talk about, but what I want more than anything is to get a press pass for the media day that they will inevitably have for Star Wars Land, because I don't want to go on opening day and be literally trampled by crowds. And I feel like this video is like exactly how you ensure that that doesn't happen, by being critical and making jokes and stuff and getting hypnotized by an alien pod. Don't attack
my boy! I have a boy now. My little wooden son!